Well, hello and welcome everybody. If you are here live, please let me know. I would love for you to say hi. It's always more fun if I know that someone's watching live, and you can go ahead and type in the comments. I'll start. Hello and welcome to our live hip workshop. This is going to be a fun one because, as you may have seen in my posts, hip movement is something that is pretty natural that we all, as human beings, when we're young, are able to do. As you can see from the little video I posted of my son who was being silly at the park. We were in London last week. My husband had a conference, and I had a couple of days alone with the kiddos. And yes, my silly 4-year-old was just getting down and doing some silly movements and giving us a lot of laughs. And it just occurred to me when I was reflecting, like, wow, like this is something that's innate, and somehow over time, probably as we get older, we just lose this range of motion. We lose this movement. Now, in clinical terms, it's called lumbo-pelvic movement. Sounds really nerdy, but basically it's the ability to move your pelvis or your hips independently from your lower back. And why that's important is because if you can do that, you're actually able to isolate the joint of your hip from your lower back away from the lower back. And why that's important is because in order to get nutrition into the joint, our joints are not just stagnant structures. There's fluid that flows in the joint to keep it loose and lubricated. So if you don't move your joints, the joint fluid gets kind of gunky and stuck. And then inflammation can occur. And if you're not moving that inflammation, things get really tight. Think of all the muscles around your joints, right? That's the reason why a joint can move. There's lots of tendons and muscles around. So if you can't move that joint, all the muscles and tendons that surround that area also get tight and stiff. There's less blood flow, there's less gliding, right? We have layers and layers of muscle, skin, fascia, other tissue, other structures, nerves, arteries, veins, so much. And if you're not moving that area, it just gets all bound down together and stuck. And that's why if you can't move your hips independently from your lower back, and for example, if you get out of a car, you've been driving for a long time, or you've been sitting all day at your desk all day at your computer, and you go to stand up, this is a common thing I hear, like, oh my God, I feel so old, stiff, and sore. I can't like straighten up right away. It takes me some time to, a couple steps or 5 to 10 minutes to move and feel loose and limber. And that, like, a huge reason people are feeling like that, you might be feeling like that, is because of that lack of movement, that lumbo-pelvic movement, or we can just say hips moving independently from your lower back. So if you are watching, please go ahead and say hi to me, hi to each other. I don't know, my thing disappeared. Let me write it again. Oh, actually it's there. Great. So I would love to know where you're watching from. If you have lower back pain, if you have hip pain, if you have any pain, just let me know in the chat. It also gives me ideas for future lives. So please go ahead. I'll just intro myself quickly. I forgot to do that at the very start. My name is Tatiana. I know some of you know me. Some of you have seen me in my clinic or online through Zoom appointments. And I'm so happy you're here today. Thank you for joining this hip live workshop, because we're going to learn how to move our hips independently from our spine, or at least start to. And if you don't get it right away, don't worry. It's not all or nothing. It's called practice. Practice makes practice. So you want to make sure that you're kind to your body. If you don't understand or you're not able to do the movement right away, that's okay. You can watch the replay, right? You can practice again, and I promise you it will come. It comes with patience, frequency, consistency, and yeah, just mind-body connection. Maybe you haven't connected to your hips in a long time. So this is your brain starting to create all those synapses all the way to that hip and lumbar lower back area, which, may not happen right away. So just be patient with yourself. For those of you who don't know, if you're new to joining this group, the whole point of redefining aches and aging for women, run by myself, is to help you, get out of that stereotypical feeling of that aging equals pain, or waking up feeling old, stiff, and sore, waking up feeling older than you should. I hear this a lot with my female clients, actually all my clients, but I'm focusing on women because that's who I resonate with. I am 41, and I also notice, my body takes just that little bit more time to heal. And yeah, I'm just really passionate about movement and mindfulness, and I would like to bring it to you to help you get stronger, feel better, move into this second half of our lives as freely as we can, moving with ease. If this was helpful and this resonates with you, please reach out to me. You can send me a private message. We can book a discovery call. I run a program for 12 weeks called the Move with Ease Method. And it's just all my years of experience as a physiotherapist and a yoga instructor. I've kind of combined it all into this package protocol, 12-week program. You get mentorship with me. You get community because other women are in it. So power of the pack, right? When you're accountable to a community, accountable to a coach, you're more likely to show up and, help get into that healthy mindset and healthy physical body as well. So let's get started. If you're sitting, awesome. We're going to stand. So come on up. We will sit again because it's important to be able to do these movements in sitting or standing. So come on and join me in standing. If you're here watching, go ahead and say hello. I think Lynn just wrote hello, but for some reason I cannot see it. But I see that you are here, Lynn, which is amazing. Oh, and now someone's calling me. I'm going to decline that. There we go. All right, so let's go. We're standing, and I'm wearing tight clothes on purpose so that you can see me, see my hips. And I'll just open my yoga mat, but you don't need a yoga mat. You just need to stand on your 2 feet. If you're at the office and you don't want to be barefoot, shoes is okay too. So if you hold your hips, take your hands and hold your hips, I want you to feel the bony front, if you can, right? Got a bony part at the front of your hip. And I want you to feel the bony back of your hip. So let's even just talk about posture first. Like, hopefully your bony front of hip is lower than the bony back of your hip. So there's a bit of a forward tilt or anterior tilt, this is called. It's not exaggerated. You don't need to have your back totally arched like that, but you want to feel like, your glutes are out a bit, your booty's back a bit. So bony front of hip, ASIS, anterior bony part here, and the back, I've got my thumbs on it, just show you. So you kind of want to feel like your thumbs are higher than the front, okay? That's part one. Now, your hips are not technically, like, it's connected, but it's not part of your lower back, right? Like your tailbone and then your lower back is 5 bones, L1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So at that junction, we should be able to move back and forth without moving your whole back. Okay, it's just like a very subtle movement. Rib cage, if you can just touch your own rib cage, that is actually pretty still as well. Okay, so the movement is coming from your hip. And if you had your fingers where I had cued you to put them, you can feel your fingers when you tuck your bum under. So it's like a posterior tilt, back tilt. Now my fingers are even, right? Like the front bone and the back bone are like level. And then when I move forward, I can go further than where my neutral was, where my start position was. And now my back bone is way higher than my front bone. So this is back and forth. Okay, so that's one hip movement that's very important. So if you can't feel that you're doing it, soften your knees a little bit. So people with really tight hamstrings, perhaps if you sit all day again, hamstrings at the back of your leg, you're sitting, it's all crunched up. It's gonna be really hard to do this movement if your knees are straight because you're not giving your body enough slack because your back of leg is so tight, right? So it's okay to soften your knees a little bit. So I'm in like a very mini squat. And from here, now try that anterior posterior movement. Can you try with me? Let me know in the chat if this is like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing, or you're like, yeah, I got it. Just let me know, okay? So I've got my knees like slightly bent now just to show you. And even for me, that's making it a little bit easier because when I'm totally straight, I don't have as much range. See, because my hamstrings are on stretch, right? Good. So that's rocking, that's called rocking your pelvis. Rocking your pelvis. Oh, hi, Juanita. I hope I'm saying your name right. Sometimes I can see the chat and sometimes I can't. So weird. Welcome. Okay. So, awesome. Were you guys able to rock your pelvis? So that's forward and back. Now we're gonna do side to side. Now this is a bit harder, and again, it's okay if you don't get it right away, but you know now, oh, like I need to be able to work towards that. So we just practice, we just work towards it, right? So side to side is what we're gonna try next. Now this is really a little bit, you're gonna have to involve your rib cage a little bit too. So I'm just jutting my hip to the left, jutting my hip to the right, and I'm softening my knees as I do that, because it's really hard to do with straight knees. And I'm also allowing my rib cage to slide over, side to side, which helps, right? Because remember, your back is one bone on top of the next one all the way to the base of your head. Tailbone all the way to the base of your head. So right now, I'm trying to isolate just my hips, but I'm obviously, moving a little bit in my middle back, a little bit in my upper back even, but I'm trying to really isolate that hip motion. Good, how is everyone doing? Let me know in the chat, was that harder or was anterior, posterior harder for you? See, sometimes with the side to side, people just bend their knees, which, that's still good. You're still getting a bit of stretch in the side body, but you're not really isolating that side to side motion in that junction between your lower back, your tailbone, like hip to lower back, right? So you actually want to feel like you're like shifting. It's not just a bend knee, one side of hip up and down. You're actually kind of trying to shift. And then if you saw the video where my 4-year-old was doing a circle, this is where we can try to put it all together, right? So you want to try to imagine you like a hula hoop. Actually, I should have brought a hula hoop because it is a great exercise for hip mobility, right? You have the hula hoop in your center and you're going around and around like that. It takes a lot of control and hip mobility to keep that hoop up there. So actually that's a really fun way to practice this. If you have children and you have a hula hoop at home, just have fun with it. It's more fun when you can laugh at yourself, right? So we're gonna combine our anterior, posterior, and our side to side and make a circle. Okay, so imagine you have a circle around you and you're trying to basically touch your pelvis to each part of that circle. And we're going to go about 5 times one way. And then let's go the other way 5 times. And some of this might feel sticky. Like if you don't do this move, if you've been sitting a lot, like this is gonna feel maybe even a bit sore. But I invite you to try to come at it with curiosity, sort of like, ooh, like that's interesting. Will that happen again the next circle? Oh, it's better this circle. I feel like I'm loosening things up. Or maybe you're like, that still really hurts, like that tweaks my lower back. Then we back off, right? We listen to our bodies. Maybe you don't circle so big. Maybe your circle looks really small today. And that's okay. You know, it's small steps, small baby steps. This is what I tell all my clients. It's not all or nothing. Even if you can just do 5%, 10%, it's better than not doing it at all. Okay? Good. Shake that out. And that was hip mobility in standing. Now, if you're, at your desk and you're someone who feels like when you get out of a chair or you're sitting in a car or a bus for a long ride and you feel like it takes, it's hard to get up, right? Like I mentioned at the beginning, when you go to stand up, it's like, oh my gosh, like I have to like straighten up. That's so stiff. And then like you're walking a little bit bent forward for those first couple steps. Excuse me. This is a trick you can try while seated. Because believe it or not, when you're seated, you can still have hip mobility. So here, I'm going to angle my camera like that. I'm going to put my hands on my hips again. And here I am seated in a neutral spine. And again, making sure when you do sit in a car, work chair, or wherever, you try to sit in neutral spine, meaning your bum is not tucked under, so you don't look like a C-shaped curve, but you're also not like overextended like that, right? You want to kind of find that happy medium where you're not working too hard, but it feels like you're as tall as you can be. Okay? And we're gonna just pretend we had, worked for hours at the computer, it was such a busy day, and now we need to stand up. So before you stand up, just rock your pelvis back and forth. And again, it doesn't have to be huge movements, but you'll maybe notice as you move back and forth, it feels a little looser, it feels a little more smooth. Okay, it's like you're just basically warming up the joints, warming up the muscles surrounding the joints. And then now that they're a bit warmed up, standing up doesn't feel so bad. It doesn't feel so creaky. It doesn't feel so stuck and dry and stuck, right? So those are some tricks that you can try if you happen to have a sitting job. Another thing to do is just get up every hour, get up every 40 minutes, rock your pelvis in standing. It's so important for us to have that movement because like I said at the beginning, there's joints, there's muscles, there's layers of tissues that surround the area. You don't want all of that to become stagnant because our bodies aren't stagnant. It's always flowing and moving and nutrition replenishing, toxins are being dumped out, fresh blood, nutrition, joint fluid, it's all coming in. But if you don't move, it's like stagnant water kind of thing. Like imagine like a stagnant pond, right? But like a moving water is fresh. There's like new energy, there's new life to it, right? So really kind of using that to remind ourselves to move frequently. It doesn't have to mean you need to be sweaty. You're just like moving a little bit more frequently in your workday or whatever you're doing. And that rocking motion is really important in your pelvis to be able to do that in sitting and standing and the side to side, right? Because the pelvis, again, we are not a 2D cartoon. We are 3D people. We like to move in 3D, so your pelvis also wants to move in all those directions. So starting with the rocking, the side to side, and then trying that hula hoop circle thing. Imagine that. Does anybody have any questions so far? Let me just check the chat. Whoops. Any questions? Side to side is easier for you. And should I contract my abs while I do it? Asked Lynn. Thank you for these questions. Okay. If you feel like contracting your abs is easier to get the rocking, by all means, but you don't have to. And side to side is easier. Yeah, that's interesting. I would have thought the opposite for you, Lynn, but it's just good to know, right? This is also cool. Like now you've observed something in your own body. Okay, like this is the one I can work on more because that one's easier. So maybe that movement, you have lots of fluidity and your muscles are loose in that direction, or your joints are okay in that direction, but it's the forward and back. And actually that kind of makes sense just because I know you and your history. It's hard for you sometimes to stand up straight, right? When you've sat at work for a long time. So even if you hold your tailbone and sort of your belly button, lower ab area, and just kind of encourage this, that helps. And now I'm not contracting my abs. My abs are relaxed right now. But if you find squeezing your abs, like your six pack, is maybe a bit easier as you come in, that's great. By all means do that. But you don't have to. Okay, well, I'm so glad that we were able to do this. There was definitely a lot of people that were interested. I think if you couldn't come live, you're going to watch the replay, which is great. Let me know in the comments anyways how you did. Okay, if you're watching the replay, let me know, and let me know if you have any questions. Maybe I'll host another hip workshop. There's so much to talk about. I didn't even talk about hip flexors and glutes and the hamstrings. Like, our bodies are so cool. They're so complicated. This was just like one tiny piece. So if you found this helpful, please let me know. I post lots of free resources and videos on here because, again, my passion is to help women live the best second half of their lives and the healthiest version of themselves so that they can show up, as a mom, as an employee, with their spouse, with their friends, exactly the way they want. This really is my passion. So please let me know how I can help you. And if you're feeling curious or ready, I do have a program called the Move with Ease Method. It is 12 weeks long. Just a reminder, right now, 12 weeks would take you right to the holiday season. So a great time to start. The program is now, but again, you can start anytime. And I hope you have a great rest of your Friday. So please, please, please practice, practice, practice. I always say this, practice makes practice. Or we can say practice makes progress. And yeah, be kind to yourself. And I hope to see you next time.